The Astrix Empire had not known peace in many years. Even after the Great Spiral War ended, the silence across the stars felt heavy, as if the galaxy itself was waiting for something to break again. High above the capital world of Astrix Prime, the royal palace floated like a silver crown against the dark sky. Inside its crystal halls walked a queen who no longer smiled. Queen Sarilith had once been known for her bright spirit. When she was a young princess, she had stood beside soldiers, listened to common citizens, and believed that unity could win any war. But time had hardened her. Betrayal had sharpened her mind. Loss had cooled her heart. The court feared her now. She ruled with calm authority and rarely showed emotion. Her voice carried across the throne chamber like winter wind. Her gaze alone could silence generals, but there was one memory she had never fully erased. Years ago, when she was only a princess, her fleet had been ambushed near the outer rim. Her own advisors had miscalculated a jump. Enemy ships surrounded her vessel. Escape seemed impossible. That was when a human soldier stepped forward. Humans were still new to the galactic stage at that time. Many species saw them as reckless and unpredictable. But that day, one human officer had stood before her and said, "Your Highness, if we stay, we die. If we move now, we might live." He had not spoken with fear. Only determination. He led a daring escape through unstable hyperspace currents no Astrix navigator would dare attempt. Against all odds, they survived. In the days that followed, he stayed by her side as war consumed the stars. He did not treat her as fragile royalty. He spoke honestly. He challenged her decisions when needed. He protected her more than once. And then when the war ended, he was gone, declared dead in an accident during a diplomatic transfer. The report had been clean, too clean. She had read it only once. After that, she locked the memory away and buried herself in ruling. Now, nearly a decade later, the past returned without warning. The throne chamber doors opened with a deep echo. "Your Majesty," announced the captain of the royal guard. "A prisoner captured near the southern border. Human." Murmurs moved through the court like ripples in water. Sarilith did not react at first. Humans were not rare anymore. Trade routes connected their territories. Some served as engineers, some as mercenaries. Their adaptability had earned both respect and suspicion. "Bring him forward," she said calmly. Two guards escorted the prisoner into the chamber. He walked without struggle. He wore dark combat armor marked with travel dust and faint damage. His hands were restrained with energy cuffs, but his back remained straight. When he lifted his head, time seemed to pause. The queen's fingers tightened slightly against her throne. The court did not notice the small movement, but inside her something shattered. His face was older. Lines marked his brow. A faint scar crossed his jaw. His eyes, once bright with restless confidence, now held quiet experience. But it was him, the same human, alive. The silence stretched long enough to make the courtiers uneasy. Sarilith leaned back slightly and allowed a cold smile to form. "How interesting," she said, her voice smooth. "A human trespasses near imperial borders and dares to stand before me without kneeling." The human did not bow. Gasps filled the chamber. He met her eyes directly. "I kneel for those who demand fear," he said evenly, "not for those I once trusted." The room felt like it had lost air. The queen's smile sharpened. "Bold words," she replied. "Tell me, human, why did you leave me?" Some members of the court exchanged confused looks. They did not understand the meaning behind her question. The human's gaze did not waver. "I did not leave," he said. "I was removed." Her laughter echoed coldly against the crystal walls. "If you think I forgot you," she said softly, "you overestimate your importance." But her heart was racing. The captain of the guard stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the prisoner was found scanning imperial traffic lanes, likely espionage." "Is that so?" she asked without looking away from the human. He spoke calmly. "I was looking for proof." "Of what?" "That someone inside your empire does not want humans and Astrix working together." Whispers grew louder. Sarilith's expression hardened. "You presume much for someone in chains." "I presume nothing," he answered. "I know what happened after the war. I know who signed the order declaring me dead." The queen's eyes flickered for only a second. No one else would have noticed. "Take him to the lower detention level," she ordered. "I will question him personally." The court was stunned. It was rare for the queen to involve herself directly in interrogation, but no one dared question her. As the guards escorted him away, the human glanced back once. Their eyes met again. This time there was no anger in his expression, only something deeper, something unresolved. That night, the palace corridors were quieter than usual. Sarilith stood alone in her private chamber, staring at a small, sealed container on a hidden shelf. Inside it rested a simple metallic badge bearing a human insignia. She had kept it. She did not know why. A soft chime signaled that the prisoner had been secured. She moved through hidden corridors until she reached the detention wing. Guards bowed as she approached. The cell door opened. The human stood when she entered. For a long moment, neither spoke. Up close, the years between them felt heavier. "You look different," he said quietly. "So do you," she replied, silence again. "You read the report," he said. "I read that you were dead." "I almost was," her jaw tightened. "Explain," he exhaled slowly. "After the war, I was assigned to accompany your delegation. Halfway through the transfer, my shuttle was diverted. I was told it was a security update. Instead, I was taken to a classified facility. For what purpose? They believed I had too much influence with you." The words settled like falling dust. "They erased my record, officially killed me, gave me a choice: serve in deep covert operations or disappear permanently. And you chose to live," she said coldly. "I chose to find out who made that decision." She studied him carefully. "You expect me to believe my council acted without my knowledge. I expect you to consider the possibility," he replied. "You were newly crowned, surrounded by advisors from families who feared human expansion." Her mind moved through old memories, debates. Subtle objections whenever human alliances were discussed. "You have no proof," she said. "I do, but not enough yet." She stepped closer to the energy barrier separating them. "And why return now?" "Because something is moving again," he said. "An organized force. Manipulating trade routes, fueling distrust between species. If humans and Astrix turn against each other, they win." She searched his face for deception. She found none, but trust was not something she gave easily anymore. "You speak of threats within my empire," she said. "Dangerous accusations." "They're already inside your walls," he answered quietly. Before she could respond, an alarm pulse vibrated faintly through the structure. A security alert. Her wrist console lit up. "Unauthorized access attempt, Royal Data Archives." Her expression changed instantly. She turned toward the door. "Stay here." He stepped forward slightly. "They know I'm here." She paused. The thought had already crossed her mind. Someone had monitored his capture. Someone was reacting. She deactivated the energy field without fully thinking. The cuffs remained, but he was no longer separated. "Walk," she commanded. They moved quickly through corridors as guards mobilized. By the time they reached the archive wing, sparks flickered from a damaged console. A data core had been forcibly removed. "Who was on duty?" she demanded. "Two guards," replied the captain, "both unconscious." The human scanned the area carefully. "Professional work," he said. "Minimal damage, precise." Her gaze narrowed. "You speak as if familiar." "I am." She faced him fully. "If this is your doing—" "It isn't," he interrupted, "but whoever did it wants something erased." She turned back toward the damaged terminal. "What was stored here?" The captain checked his display. His face paled. "Historical military records. Post-war transition files." Her heart pounded once. The same files that would include sealed personnel transfers. She slowly looked back at the human. His eyes told her he understood. "This is not coincidence," he said. "No, it was not." The queen straightened. "Lock down the palace," she ordered. "No vessels depart orbit without inspection." As guards rushed to carry out commands, she stood in silence. If someone had erased records tonight, it meant they feared what those records contained. It meant his story held weight. She walked away from the chaos and into a quieter corridor. He followed at a respectful distance. "You realize what this means?" she said finally. "It means whoever removed me from your side is still active. And watching." "Yes." She stopped beneath a tall window overlooking the city lights below. "For years," she said softly, "I believed you chose ambition over loyalty." His voice was steady. "I never chose against you." She closed her eyes briefly. Emotion threatened to surface. She pushed it down. "You will remain under guard," she said, "but you will assist in this investigation." A faint, almost relieved expression crossed his face. "That's all I asked." She turned to face him fully once more. "If you betray me now," she said quietly, "I will not hesitate." He nodded once. "I wouldn't expect you to." Far above them, beyond the shining atmosphere of Astrix Prime, a silent vessel drifted in shadow. Inside it, unseen observers monitored the palace lockdown. One figure studied the data feed calmly. The human has re-established contact, an aide reported. Yes, the figure replied, as predicted. Shall we accelerate phase 2? A pause. Not yet, let them rediscover trust. It will make the fracture deeper. Back inside the palace, Queen Sarilith stood alone once again in her chamber. But this time the silence felt different. The past she had buried was no longer a memory. It was walking through her halls, alive. And if he was telling the truth, then her empire had been manipulated for years without her knowing. She opened the hidden container and held the old human badge in her hand. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to feel something other than cold control. Not anger. Not regret. Resolve. If someone had separated them to weaken her, they had miscalculated. Because she was no longer the young princess they once tried to isolate. She was queen now. And this time, she would not let anyone decide her alliances for her. Outside, the stars shimmered like distant fire. The game that had begun years ago was moving again. And humanity, unpredictable and resilient, had just stepped back onto her board. The galaxy would soon learn whether that was a mistake. Or its salvation. The lockdown of the palace lasted through the night. No ships were allowed to leave orbit. Communication channels were monitored. Every council member was quietly tracked. The capital world felt calm on the surface, but beneath that calm, tension spread like invisible fire. Queen Sarilith did not sleep. She stood before a large star map inside her private strategy chamber. Hundreds of trade routes glowed in thin blue lines across the galaxy. Some blinked slowly, marking recent disturbances. A few lines were dimmed completely, showing lost contact. Behind her stood the human. He was no longer inside a cell, but he was not free either. 2 guards waited outside the chamber doors. His energy cuffs had been removed, yet he remained under watch. "Show me what you found," she said without turning. He stepped forward and activated a small projection device from his belt. A new set of red lines appeared over the star map. "These are supply routes attacked in the last 6 months," he said calmly. "Most incidents were blamed on pirates, but look at the timing." She studied the data. Each attack happened shortly after diplomatic talks between Astrix and human representatives. "They want distrust," she said quietly. "Yes," she crossed her arms. "And you believe this connects to your disappearance?" "I do. The same pattern started after the war. Every time you spoke publicly about cooperation with humans, something would disrupt it." She remembered the resistance she faced in the early days of her reign. Advisors warning her about human ambition. Reports of minor conflicts that suddenly grew larger. At the time, she thought it was simple politics. Now she was no longer sure. A soft signal came through her wrist console. "Your Majesty," said the captain of the guard through the channel, "we have identified unauthorized access from within the council wing during the archive breach." Her eyes sharpened. "Name: Counselor Valian." The name settled heavily. Valian had served her father. He was respected, intelligent, and always cautious regarding human alliances. "Bring him," she ordered. Minutes later, Counselor Valian entered the chamber with controlled composure. His silver robes flowed neatly. His expression was calm, but his eyes flicked briefly toward the human. "You summon me, Your Majesty?" She faced him slowly. "The archive wing was breached tonight," she said. "Your access signature was detected near the restricted files." He did not hesitate. "I was reviewing military expenditures. I had no knowledge of a breach." The human watched silently. Sarilith stepped closer to Valian. "The removed files concern post-war personnel transfers," she said. A brief pause. "Sensitive material," Valian replied carefully. "Perhaps someone is attempting to create division." "Perhaps," she said, "or perhaps someone wishes to erase certain decisions." Valian's gaze hardened slightly. "Are you accusing me?" "I am observing patterns." The tension in the room thickened. Valian turned toward the human. "Your Majesty," he said gently, "this human has a history of influencing your judgment. It would be wise to question his sudden reappearance." Sarilith's expression did not change. "I question everyone," she replied. "Including you," Valian bowed slightly. "Of course." He left with calm steps, but something in his posture felt tighter than before. When the doors closed, the human exhaled slowly. "He's careful," he said. "Yes. He expected suspicion." She nodded once. "That makes him either innocent or very practiced." She walked back to the star map. "If someone within my council orchestrated your removal, they would need support beyond one voice," she said. "Influence across fleets, access to intelligence channels." "And patience," he added. Her eyes shifted to him. You survived years in covert operations, she said. What did you learn? That enemies rarely act alone, and the most dangerous ones rarely show anger. She considered that. I want names, she said. You'll have them, he answered. But we need to watch them move first. She studied him for a long moment. Trust was returning slowly, but she would not rush it. Very well, she said. You will assist my internal security team. He nodded. The next days passed in careful observation. The human moved quietly through the palace under supervision. He reviewed data streams, compared trade logs, spoke with lower-ranked officers who were less likely to filter their words. Sarilith noticed something during those days. He did not try to impress her. He did not attempt to reopen old emotions. He focused only on the task. That steadiness unsettled her more than anger would have. On the fourth evening, he requested a private audience. She met him in the strategy chamber again. I found a pattern, he said, projecting a new data cluster. Small supply shipments redirected through neutral systems. Energy transfers masked as maintenance fees. Communication pings routed through abandoned satellites. Someone is funding a hidden fleet, he said. For what purpose? To strike when both humans and Astrix are distracted. Her mind moved quickly. The border tensions. Yes. If open conflict starts between us, your fleets shift outward. Humans respond defensively. That leaves central systems exposed. She felt a slow chill. Where is this fleet gathering? He highlighted a region beyond a nebula cluster. Here, outside standard patrol range. She turned sharply. Why was this not detected? Because the ships are using mixed technology, some Astrix, some human, some unknown. Her gaze hardened. That implies cooperation. Or theft, he replied. Before she could answer, alarms echoed through the palace again. This time louder. Your Majesty, the captain's voice cut in urgently. Multiple energy signatures detected near orbit, unidentified vessels. The Queen moved immediately. Defense grid active, she ordered. The human followed without hesitation. They reached the central command deck as holographic displays lit the air. 6 ships hovered at the edge of sensor range. Dark hulls, no visible insignia. Open communication, Sarilith commanded. Silence answered. Then one of the ships fired, not at the palace. At a civilian trade station orbiting the planet, explosions flashed across the viewing screen. The Queen's expression turned cold as ice. Deploy interceptors. Fighter squadrons launched from hidden bays. Astrix cruisers shifted into defensive formation. The human stepped closer to the tactical display. They're testing response time, he said, and provoking fear, she added. The unidentified ships did not engage directly with the fleet. They fired precise strikes at infrastructure, then began retreating. Pursue, she ordered. 2 Astrix cruisers accelerated. Suddenly, one of the retreating ships released a cluster of energy mines. One cruiser veered away just in time. The second was slower. The explosion tore across its shields. The bridge crew fell silent. Damage reports filled the air. The unidentified ships vanished into hyperspace. The attack lasted less than 4 minutes, but it sent a clear message. Sarilith stood unmoving as casualty reports came in. Civilian injuries, structural damage, military losses limited but real. They want escalation, she said quietly. Yes, the human replied. Now your council will demand retaliation. As if summoned by prediction, council members began arriving at the command deck. Valian stepped forward first. This is a direct act of aggression, he declared. We must assume human involvement. The mixed technology is clear. Murmurs of agreement followed. The Queen's eyes shifted toward the human only briefly. He did not react. Assumptions are dangerous, she said evenly. We have no proof of origin. Your Majesty, Valian insisted, the public will demand action. If we hesitate, we appear weak. She felt the weight of leadership pressing against her. Anger would be easy, war would be simple, but simple answers were often traps. We will investigate before striking blindly, she said firmly. Valian's gaze flickered. That may cost us. Reckless war would cost more. Silence fell. The council slowly dispersed, unsatisfied. When the command deck cleared, she turned to the human. They move faster than expected, she said. They're accelerating, he replied. That means they're worried. About what? About us working together. She studied him again. Then we must show them they are correct to worry. Later that night, she stood alone on a balcony overlooking the damaged trade station. Repaired drones swarmed like small stars around the broken structure. He joined her quietly. You always chose patience, he said softly, And you always chose risk. He gave a faint smile. That's why we worked. The word worked lingered between them. She kept her gaze forward. I believed you abandoned me, she said quietly. I believed you ordered my removal, he replied. The honesty was simple, direct, pain shared without accusation. She finally looked at him. And yet here we stand again. Yes, a distant flash marked the final repair drone sealing a hull breach. We will draw them out, she said, but on our terms, he nodded. What do you propose? She turned fully toward him. We announce a joint summit with human representatives. He blinked slightly. Publicly? Yes, we declare our intent to strengthen alliance, he understood immediately. They'll see it as confirmation of failure. And act. He gave a slow nod. It's dangerous. So is hesitation. The next morning, the announcement spread across the galaxy. Queen Seralith would host a human delegation within 3 standard cycles. Speculation exploded. Supporters praised the bold step. Critics warned of betrayal. In shadowed systems, hidden observers received the news. The same unknown figure who had watched the palace lockdown now studied the transmission. They persist, the aide said. Yes, the figure replied calmly. Then we remove the human. Back on a Strix Prime, security doubled. The human worked beside a Strix intelligence officers to trace the origin of the recent attack. Small clues began aligning, energy signatures matching old black market suppliers, navigation patterns used by decommissioned fleets. A network slowly revealed itself. But before they could complete the picture, another strike came, this time inside the palace. An explosion shook the lower levels during evening hours. Emergency alarms blared. Smoke filled corridors. Seralith moved quickly toward the impact zone, guards close behind. The human reached the scene first. A support beam had collapsed near a civilian transit corridor. Several workers were trapped. Without hesitation, he moved into the unstable debris. Stop, a guard shouted. Structural failure risk, he ignored it. He lifted fractured metal with bare hands and pulled one injured worker free. Another beam shifted dangerously. Seralith stepped forward instinctively. Stabilize that section, she ordered engineers. Together, under falling sparks and shaking walls, they cleared the corridor. When the last civilian was carried away, the human leaned briefly against the wall, breathing hard. She approached him. You should have waited for clearance, she said. And let them suffocate, he replied calmly. She studied his face, the same instinct. The same refusal to step back. In that moment, something inside her settled. He had not changed in the ways that mattered. The explosion, once analyzed, revealed a hidden device planted within palace infrastructure. It was not meant to kill the queen. It was meant to test access. They're probing defenses, he said later that night, and measuring response time again, she added. Yes, she stood in silence for several seconds. They are growing bolder, because they believe we are divided. She turned to face him. Then let them learn. Her voice carried no hesitation now. The summit would proceed. Security would tighten. And if their hidden enemy attempted another move, they would be ready. Far beyond a strict space, in the shadow fleet gathering near the nebula, final preparations began. Orders were transmitted. Coordinates locked. The phase of quiet manipulation was ending. Open confrontation approached. And at the center of it all stood a queen who had once been isolated, and a human who had returned from the dead, together. Whether that unity would save the galaxy or ignite it remained to be seen. But one truth had become clear. The enemy had underestimated humanity's persistence. And they had underestimated a queen who no longer feared trusting again. The palace of a Strix Prime felt different as the day of the summit arrived. Security drones moved silently along the ceiling. Guards stood at every entrance. Outside the capital world, defense fleets waited in layered formation, ready to respond at a moment's notice. The entire empire watched, along with half the known galaxy. Queen Seralith stood at the highest observation platform, looking down at the landing zone where the human delegation would soon arrive. Her posture remained calm, but inside her mind moved quickly through every possible outcome. Behind her, the human stood quietly. He had spent the past cycles working alongside a Strix intelligence, helping analyze enemy patterns. The attacks on the palace and the trade station confirmed what he had suspected from the beginning. Someone wanted to force conflict between humans and a Strix. And the summit was the perfect opportunity to strike. They will come today, he said softly. She did not ask who. Yes, she replied, and this time we will be ready. A distant glow appeared in the sky. The human diplomatic vessel emerged from hyperspace, surrounded by escort ships. It moved slowly toward the palace landing zone. Crowds gathered across the capital city, watching through public projections. Some citizens welcomed the alliance, others feared betrayal. The galaxy held its breath. The landing platform opened like a flower of metal petals. The human ship descended smoothly and touched down. Sarilith walked forward with steady steps. When the ramp lowered, human representatives emerged, diplomats, military advisors, and scientists. Their leader, Ambassador Karen, bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty," he said. "Welcome to Astrix Prime," she replied. Formal greetings continued, but her attention remained divided. Her senses searched for signs of danger. The human beside her moved subtly, watching the crowd, the sky, the surrounding structures. Minutes passed. Everything appeared normal, too normal. The ceremony moved inside the grand hall. Holographic banners displayed symbols of both civilizations. Musicians played soft harmonies designed to calm tension. As speeches began, the human leaned closer to her. "They haven't acted yet," he murmured. "They will," she replied quietly. The moment arrived sooner than expected. A deep vibration rolled through the palace. Lights flickered. The sky outside darkened as multiple hyperspace signatures appeared suddenly above the capital. The command deck erupted with alerts. "Unidentified fleet entering orbit," Sarilith stood immediately. "Activate defense grid." The summit hall filled with tension. Guards surrounded the delegates. Through the massive windows, dark ships appeared, dozens of them. Their hulls reflected no light. Their formations were precise, calculated. "They came in force," the human said. "They intend to make a statement," she replied. A transmission opened automatically across all channels. A distorted voice echoed through the hall. "Queen of Astrix, human allies." "Your cooperation ends today," gasps spread among the diplomats. "You were warned against unity," the voice continued. "Emotional alliances weaken order. The galaxy requires separation to maintain control." Sarilith stepped forward. "Reveal yourself," she commanded. The voice ignored her. "Your bond with the human should have ended years ago. We corrected that error once. We will correct it again." Her eyes sharpened. "So it was you," she said coldly. "You erased him." "Yes, necessary for stability." The human's hands tightened into fists. "You underestimated humanity," he said quietly. "And you underestimated me," Sarilith added. Outside, the enemy fleet moved closer. Astrix defense ships launched from hidden hangars. Human escorts joined formation beside them. The battle began. Energy beams flashed across the sky. Explosions lit the atmosphere. Fighter craft darted like sparks between giants. Inside the palace, command officers coordinated responses. Sarilith moved to the tactical display. "Target their command ship," she ordered. "Break coordination." The human studied the display. "They're protecting one central vessel," he said, pointing to a larger ship surrounded by escorts. "That's where the leader is." "Then that is where we go," she replied. He looked at her sharply. "You intend to board it?" "Yes." "That's extremely dangerous. So is allowing them to continue." Without hesitation, she turned to the captain of the guard. "Prepare my personal transport." Moments later, a sleek assault shuttle launched from the palace. Astrix pilots guided it through chaotic battle lines while human fighters provided cover. Inside the shuttle, silence filled the air. The queen and the human sat across from each other. "You could remain safe," he said. "I could," she replied, "but I will not." He gave a faint nod. He understood her too well to argue further. The enemy command ship grew larger through the viewport. Weapons fire struck nearby, shaking the shuttle. "Brace," the pilot called. They slipped through a gap in the enemy formation and docked against the command vessel's outer hull. The boarding hatch opened. Smoke drifted through dark corridors. Emergency lights pulsed red. Astrix guards moved forward carefully. Resistance came quickly. Enemy soldiers emerged from side passages, their armor bearing no clear insignia. A brief firefight followed, controlled, precise, avoiding unnecessary harm. The human moved beside the queen, watching every angle. They reached a central chamber where a tall figure waited. Counselor Valian, Sarilith stopped. "You," she said quietly. Valian's expression remained calm. "Your Majesty," he said with a polite bow, "you were never meant to reach this point. You betrayed your empire." "I preserved it," he corrected. "Human expansion threatens balance. Emotional decisions cloud your judgment." You separated us to control me, she said. Yes, and it worked for years. The human stepped forward slightly. You caused countless deaths. Necessary sacrifices, Valian replied without emotion. Sarilith felt anger rise, but she held it steady. You orchestrated attacks to force war. War creates clarity, he said. Without division, species grow too strong together. Unity creates unpredictability. The human shook his head slightly. You fear change. I maintain order, Valian replied. Outside, the battle intensified. Energy surges shook the command ship. Sarilith stepped closer. You miscalculated one thing, she said quietly. What is that? You believed isolation makes rulers stronger. She glanced briefly toward the human. It only makes them blind. Valian raised a weapon. Before he could fire, the human moved. He deflected the attack, pushing Sarilith aside. Guards restrained Valian after a brief struggle. The command center alarms began to sound. Ship destabilizing, a system voice announced. They set it to self-destruct, the human said. Sarilith activated her communicator. All units withdraw from enemy vessel. They rushed back through the corridors toward the shuttle. Explosions echoed behind them. As the shuttle detached and sped away, the enemy command ship erupted in a massive flash of light. The remaining enemy fleet lost coordination instantly. Astrix and human forces quickly gained advantage. Within minutes, the battle turned. Enemy ships retreated or were disabled. Silence slowly returned to orbit. Back at the palace, the summit hall filled with relief and exhaustion. Valian was taken into custody. Evidence recovered from the command ship revealed years of manipulation, secret networks, falsified reports, engineered conflicts. Sarilith stood before the gathered delegates. Today, she said, her voice strong, we faced those who believed unity was weakness. They were wrong. She looked toward the human. Trust is not a flaw. Cooperation is not vulnerability. Together, we are stronger. The hall erupted in applause. Later, in a quiet corridor, she stood alone with him. The battle was over. The galaxy had changed. You asked me once why I left, he said softly. Yes. I never chose to leave you, she nodded slowly. I know. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable, but peaceful. You stayed, she said quietly. I always intended to. She allowed a small, genuine smile. Then perhaps, she said, this time we choose our path together. Outside, stars burned brightly across the sky. The war that had begun with separation ended with unity. And for the first time in years, the Queen felt not alone, but stronger because she was not. Human and Astrix stood side by side, and the galaxy would never be the same again.